Hello viewers, welcome back to Top Notch Online TV. Remember, we're still discussing themes in the Fathers of Nations, and in the last episode, we discussed 3 themes and we have many more to go. To start with, we shall be discussing the theme Plight of Women, and Teacher Emmys will be assisting us discuss everything that is involved in this theme. Kindly take us through.
Thank you, Teacher Fidelis. Welcome back, viewers. So I'm going to look at Plight of Women. For the definition, plight of women means the difficulties or the distress that the women face in a community or in a society. And in this case, our society is the Society of Fathers of Nations. So the difficulties or the distress that the women face in Fathers of Nations. So the first one, I'm going to look at the title. The title of our book is Fathers of Nations. And Fathers of Nations, like it was explained in our first session by Teacher Rispa, is about the leaders in our states, the leaders in our countries. And if you look at these leaders, it's actually, they are actually men. All the 49 heads of state plus the host, not even a single woman is mentioned. They are referred to as the fathers of the nation. So the question is, women don't have the leadership skills. Can't women lead a nation as well? So why is this book or this society biased towards women, that all the leadership positions are going to men and leaving the women without any power, without any position? So the first instance is with our title, Fathers of Nations. The second one is women are seen as objects of sexual pleasure. So when we look at that, we go to the episode where we see Miss Fiona Mackenzie seated at the Seamount restaurant waiting for Dr. Afolabi, because she wanted to carry on with the section of the interview that was cut short by her boss. So in our waiting, we see this man, this abductor by the name Leo or Liberian Muller. So what does he do? He sees a woman seated alone, and he assumes that this woman can only be a street walker. A street walker is another name for a prostitute. Yes. So he refers to her as Joy, and he's like abducting her, and she keeps on crying for help, and no one seems to be responding to her call for help, because the receptionist says that it's like he doesn't care. It's none of his business. He's just reading a book and he says he can't mendel, because the moment he mendels, then he's going to lose his job. So he says that they're just drunk customers who are leaving the restaurant. So that part where the Liberian Mura feels like, because he's a woman who is seated alone in a restaurant at night, then this woman must be a prostitute, and so she should give him the sexual pleasures, whether she likes it or not, because clearly Miss Fiona Mackenzie was not for the idea. She protested a lot, and she tried to fight him, but she didn't have the energy to win the fight. So the third point is women have no rights to opinion. Let's look at the case of Miss Mahmoud. Miss Mahmoud in Libya is a junior colleague of Engineer Tahir. So Engineer Tahir sees a very beautiful young girl at his workplace, and he falls in love with her. So one day he goes and approaches her and tries to take or ask her out on a date. But Miss Mahmoud, just like women do, tries to play hard to get. So she says a no, but she didn't mean this no. But Miss Engineer Tahil is so offended. He feels like his man ego has been hurt. So, and he feels like a woman should not say no to him. So later on in the book, we see that he avenges that no. He feels like it's an embarrassment, especially coming from a junior colleague who is a woman. So he avenges that, and he goes and slaps her and hides in the culture of Libya. When he finds her dressing, putting on the work uniform, and so she had uncovered her head. So we all know the sequence of events that happened after that. But our main point is, it's like a woman should not say no to a man. A woman has no opinion of her own. So whether she meant this no or not, it was a no that was supposed to be respected.
Yeah.
Whether it was a genuine no or a no that meant plain hard to get.
Yeah.
So it was a no that was supposed to be respected, but it is not, simply because she's a woman and a junior colleague. Then our fourth point is that women are seen as objects of procreation. Let's look at their work is to bring forth children. Let's look at the case of Pamela. Pamela is a white lady married to Dr. Afolabi. She feels like there is no need of bringing forth children, yet we have so many children in Africa who are not getting proper care and who we can adopt and give a good life, a better life than they have out there. So she has her own freedom to make her own decisions. But look at the Yoruba tribe. They look at it, they don't embrace that kind of change. They see that a woman, the moment you're married, your work is to give your husband children. So just because she does not want, it's not like she can't, she does not want to have children of her own. She wants to adopt. The Yoruba tribe takes offense in that, and that's why they send a young girl, even without the consent of Dr. Afolabi, a young girl to go, and actually this cousin of Dr. Afolabi, for me, planted her inside the bedroom. That's some sort of like disrespect to Pamela herself. So it's like they don't recognize Pamela at all as part of their family, because she doesn't have children for Dr. Afolabi. So clearly you can see in this society, a woman is supposed to sire
to children.
Yes, for the man. Now the last point is like the women are seen as a weak gender. The women are seen as a weak gender. I'll take you to Tony. When Tony was having dinner with her family, she talks about how her day was, and she excitedly talks about how she had personal safety lessons, and the instructor talked about how women should learn how to protect themselves against male violence. So clearly, although the father feels that is the duty of the government, and the government has failed in providing security and protection to the citizens, Tony now feels that it is up to them as women. She even warns a mother about how she behaves every time she leaves the mall. That you shouldn't go and sit inside your car, because now you become an easy target to these male attackers. So clearly you can see that these are the things that happen in the society. That if a woman is seated alone in a parking lot, then she's an easy target to a male attacker. That if a woman is walking alone, then she's an easy target to the person, to the male attackers. So a woman is supposed to like go through these lessons and be taught how to defend herself every time a male attacks her. So the women are seen like a weaker gender as compared to the male gender.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I think in addition to these teacher Amy's, could we also consider that Ziliza, the wife to Comrade Melusi, was killed? Not that the leader wanted to revenge on Melusi. Couldn't they have picked on a male counterpart?
Yeah.
Why pick on a woman, Ziliza? We see that she's killed and she's just left on the floor in the kitchen. So I think we're just reinforcing on the fact that women are seen as a weaker gender.
Yes.
Yeah. So and basically, if you're just looking at fathers of nations, mothers sustain a society. Yeah. With mothers, they nurture. Why don't we have any woman who is actually bringing out this aspect of nurturing? So in a way, just looking at women being seen as the weaker gender in this case, but we know in the society women have much more to offer. But students, as you discuss this book, Fathers of Nations, of course, we're looking at the plight of women and use the various situations that we have in the book, as well as the characters that the teacher has discussed. And with that, I think we can move to the next theme, and this is on corruption. And we know corruption is endemic in Africa. Every now and then we have instances whereby we have someone asking for a bribe. And in this book, we have seen the same happening. So Teacher Rispa, what can you say about this thing?
Okay. As my colleague has earlier said, that corruption is deep-seated in Africa. But when you're looking at corruption, most of us only interpret it from face value. They only see about bribery.
Yes.
If there's no money exchanging hands, then they'll not be able to see it as corruption. That takes me to an instance of defining what really is corruption. Corruption, by definition, is a weakness in morals. And when you're talking about weakness in morals, we go ahead and incorporate aspects such as bribery. There's still nepotism and favoritism. There's also others such as misusing the power, rigging of elections, and then we are now ready to illustrate the points from Fathers of Nations. My first point, I'll take it from Gambia, I'll illustrate it through Miss Mackenzie. Miss Mackenzie, when she was told to come back to the office by her boss, or the boss in Gambian news, as she was headed back, the driver to the taxi that she had boarded was asked for a bribe. When he was reluctant on giving the bribe, he was detained for some time until later. When he gave the bribe, he was let free. Still on corruption surrounding the summit, we are being told that there were checkpoints. I think it was to enhance the security of the visiting dignitaries that were in the country. In so doing, there were a lot of checkpoints, and in those checkpoints, we are being told that it provided more chances for police to extort bribes from passers-by. They would take the opportunity upon themselves and extort money from passers-by. The second point on corruption goes hand in hand with nepotism. People are not given things because they deserve. It is not being done on merit. Someone will do it for you maybe because I know you, maybe because you're from my tribe. An instance can be found in Melusi's country, where after they had gained independence, the leader that had occupied the helm decides, people from the Ndebele community, they are my enemies, and at the same time, he is strengthening his supporters, the people of the Shona community. He awards them. At the same time, he fixes people from the Ndebele community. That is tribalism. Tribalism is an act of corruption. It shows towards the lack of morals. A third point is still coming from Zimbabwe. In Zimbabwe, they had conducted an election. As much as the opposition is owning up to the fact that they lost the election, truly, they lost the election. But now, the percentage by which they lost, how can one person get 99% while other people
get 1%?
They share the 1%.
Yeah.
And later on, it could be attributed to the fact that the leader had rigged the elections. He is also corrupt. Another point on corruption can be found, can emanate from Kenya through what is being said by Professor Kimani Karanja. According to Professor Kimani Karanja, looking back at when it all started, lecturers could earn more than the MPs. But then when the MPs found it in their favor, they're the lawmakers after all. When they get to parliament, they're increasing their salaries and making sure so that they retain the most of that money. What is being taxed is the salary. Now they're no longer calling it salary, yet they're increasing it year after year. Every sitting, they're increasing what is due to them in terms of money. The other people, the common man, is being taxed, yet theirs is not being taxed. They're really enriching themselves. They are corrupt. Closely related to that, we are looking at newborn Walamu. Newborn Walomu has grown his belly ever since he became an MP. The growing of the belly, even from a literature point of view, this man is enriching himself from the position he has been given by the citizens. Go over there, serve the citizens, but the man is enriching himself. That is why his belly is extending. Still on Walomu, apart from enriching himself, the man is lacking morals. Therefore, we can refer to him as corrupt. Walomu can be attributed to a character, can be described as someone who is promiscuous, someone who has many sexual partners. This man, he has 4 wives. Maybe by his religion he might have been allowed, but then his greed for women, his desire for women seems to be insatiable. He even goes ahead and is looking for a seer to also make him to make her the 4th wife. And what is said about Olamo is that when he's looking at these women, he refers to them as he has killed many, but he has not eaten. Interpretation: this man has slept with many women, but he has not wifed all of them. He simply sleeps with them. That brings about his character of being promiscuous.
Yeah.
Another illustration of corruption comes through Simba Ibarosa. Simba Ibarosa is not an honest person. He propagates falsehood. During when they're looking at Way Omega, this man invents a story. At that moment, he invents a story that Way Omega has stipulated that their tenure of power can only be 2 terms, can be confined to 2 terms. When he's being asked in that document, could you show us exactly where they have spoken about only 2 terms, but they couldn't even trace it, they couldn't point it out, simply because the man had simply invented it. He had invented the lie. Another person who propagates corruption, maybe through bribery, as much as he's doing it for a greater cause, he wants Path Alpha to be chosen.
Yeah.
It is a good cause that will help the common man, but he's also incorporating some elements of bribery. He goes ahead, takes Melusi, someone who has been struck by poverty. Look at the way Melusi is eating, gulping the food, even asking for more, even taking up Longway's food. He pays for his bills. At the same time, he gives him a stack of money.
Yeah.
A stack of money. And his words are, money will not be a problem. When he's trying to sway him on whether to join his side, he tells him very clearly, money is not a problem. At the same time, he buys him food and settles his bill. Not once, but twice. They go to 2 different restaurants. Even if it were me, who is Melusi, I would readily join. He uses his money to make sure that he sways Melusi's influence into joining Path Alpha. Another one is the last point on corruption lies in the misuse of power. I'm looking at Dr. Afolabi. Let the students not forget that. Let them not justify that the end justifies the means. The means is what you're tackling over here. We are looking at corruption. Someone misusing his power. Dr. Afolabi, on the agenda of discussion, Path Alpha was not on the agenda, but using his influence, he sneaks in Path Alpha and it is finally on the agenda. And later on, we see that it is even elected. The misuse of power, using his position that he had been given, entrusted with a position to sneak in Path Alpha. That is it about corruption.
Thank you, teacher Rispa. And of course, I'm glad that you have shared and told the students that we're not just looking at instances where people are bribing each other. We're also looking at the moral corruption. And she has given enough evidence from the book Fathers of Nations that we have corruption in the book. So whenever you're giving these instances, ensure that you're also looking at the other side of the story, so that you just don't look at the police who ask for bribes from the tax driver driving Fiona Mackenzie, but also look at Dr. Afolabi. In a way, we're just looking at Dr. Afolabi as a character who is initiating Path Alpha, which is actually a document that is looking for the good of the citizen. But in a way, since he's entrusted to be an advisor to the president, but he uses his position to bring in another document. In a way, we're seeing that he's also corrupt. So thank you so much for sharing that information. And we have another theme that we shall be looking at, and this is the theme of poverty, and teacher Elis will take us through.
Thank you again, teacher Fidelis. So I'm going to give the definition of poverty. Poverty is any deficiency of elements or resources that are needed or desired, or deficiency in resources that constitutes to richness. So if there is shortage of resources, then we can say that are desired to survive, then you can see that there is poverty. So the first point that brings out the theme of poverty in Fathers of Nations is learners, the learned citizens are paid peanuts, which is taxed, thus being turned into almost beggars. The case of Professor Karanja Kimani, it tells his daughter that initially the professors used to earn way more than the members of parliament. But now the members of parliament came up with a bill that they passed that so to it that they are now getting more than the professors. So as we stand, the professors were getting 100 times more than, no, not the professors, but sorry, the members of parliament were getting 100 times more than the professors. So, now this money from the members of parliament was not being taxed, while money from the professors was being taxed. We can look at specifically Professor Karanja's case scenario. So when he's having dinner with his family, Tony requests his father to give her the family car so that she can use it to go to work the following day. But what does the father say? The father says that the car has not been repaired and that he was waiting for the next pay so that he can repair it. Asia says sarcastically that the car is a metaphor of Professor Karanja's life. Just like his life is going nowhere, the same way his car is going nowhere. So that tells you the poor state of the car is the poor state of Professor Karanja. Reason being, he was being unpaid, and so he could not provide the basic needs for his own family. And as a result, his daughter dies in the road accident while using the public means. And Asia, his wife of 30 years, lives because according to her, Professor Karanja is not ambitious because he refuses to leave teaching and says that teaching he says teaching is
his life. This is something he wants
to
do until he dies.
Until he dies. So he says he can't leave teaching for politics. So Asia wants him to leave teaching because it was not paying well and join politics where there is corruption and maybe he can make more money to sustain his family. So the second illustration we have is Zimbabwe. So poverty has reigned in Zimbabwe as a result of collapsed economy. So at some point, Comrade Melusi Ngobile tells Mr. Longway that the economy of Zimbabwe has collapsed. As they were having lunch in a restaurant, he observes that very few people were seated in the restaurant having, actually there was hardly anyone. It was lunchtime, but there was hardly anyone having lunch in the restaurant. And he says during that particular moment, the economy of Zimbabwe has collapsed. So people don't have money to engage in luxury like eating out in the restaurant. Unless if you see a Zimbabwean eating in a restaurant, then he was in the company of a visitor or a foreigner who is actually footing the bills. The case scenario of Comrade Melusi, he was there with Mr. Longway because Mr. Longway was footing the bill. So actually Mr. Longway had invited him to lunch so that he can try to sway him or persuade him to join the Agada team or the Path Travelers team. So he pays the bills, and on top of that, he also gives him money because he noticed that he was a poor man who was struggling in life, even from the way he was eating. He ate his share of the food, and when he noticed that Mr. Longway was not eating his, he also took Mr. Longway's share and ate it. So it's like he swallowed every bit of the food that was on that table. And Mr. Longway realized that, and he was like, "Would you like some more?" So he noticed that this was a hungry person, someone who hardly gets food. So you can see the state of economy in Zimbabwe. It's ruined, and the citizens are suffering and languishing in poverty. The third point is in Gambia. The common citizens in Gambia are brought out as poor. They live in a poor state. For example, when the visitors are coming to Gambia, we are you are shown the slum dwellers.
Yeah.
The slum dwellers all live in slums, and most of them get their livelihood from the roadside kiosks. Had their slums demolished, had their roadside kiosk demolished one evening to create that perfect picture that Gambia is a perfect and a beautiful city. So clearly, if you have slum dwellers in the country, and kiosk dotting the towns and the major cities like Baju, then it shows that there is poverty in that particular country.
Yeah.
So the citizens of Zambia are languishing in poverty, and the government is doing nothing. Actually, the government is even worsening the situation. So the little that they're getting from the roadside kiosks, they are no longer getting them. They had at least housing, even if it was in poor state, the slums. They are now homeless because the bulldozers came one night and destroyed everything. So leaving them homeless and leaving them with no source of income. So clearly, most of the citizens in Gambia are also in a very poor state in terms of their economy. So we can say Gambia is a poor country as well.
Wonderful. Now, looking at these, of course, we're looking at and the point that caught my eye is Professor Kimani. This is someone who has gone to school. He's supposed to be earning much more, but what happens? And in a way, students, if you're following with the discussion, you'll see that the themes that we're discussing, in a way, they're just overlapping. You cannot discuss one theme without touching on the other. Because if you're looking at the corrupt MPs, then you are looking at poverty. Because if Professor Kimani was getting enough pay, he would have bought maybe a better vehicle, and Tuni would not have died. But what is he getting? The book says that he gets peanuts, and the peanuts are actually taxed. So it's a very poor state of affairs when you're looking at this character. And again, if you're looking at the many African countries that have been represented in Fathers of Nations, we're looking at states that are just impoverished. You know, when someone is living in a slum, and as if that was not enough, the government comes and takes over, destroys the slums. Now they don't have income, they don't have food, they don't have a source of life, a living. So in a way, we're seeing the common citizen suffering. And actually, if teachers, if we were to look at the current state of affairs in Africa, I think it's the same thing happening. And looking at Fathers of Nations, this is a book that is bringing into light the current issues, the current state of affairs in Africa. And at this point, I just want to ask a question. What are you doing about this state of affairs? Do we want to change anything? Are we working towards making Africa a better place? Now, today, that's the end of our discussion. But students at home, just know that we have many more. Themes that you have not discussed. So ensure that you tune in our next episode as we look at more themes in the book. And ensure that you leave any comment in case there's anything that you would want us to look into in our next episode. You can just comment in the comment section, and also ensure that you subscribe so that anytime there's a new video, then you can follow it. And I'm really sure you'll be much better in dealing with Fathers of Nations. With that, it's a thank you from myself and the team. Till next time, it's a goodbye.
A goodbye.